This is Twirl. I'm Mike. I'm here with the legendary radio programmer, Alex Cosper. Alex, she's a great example of a well-known artist going DIY on us.
That's right. Deborah, I met her last summer at Harlow's here in Sacramento.
Yeah.
But I might have met her earlier on Facebook.
That's true.
Yeah, I think, anytime an artist like that could have national success and then move to Sacramento, I'm all for supporting them.
Me too, and I'm amazed that we've got her and Sal Valentino, and there's probably a couple others that were nationally or world famous and moved to Sacramento. Is Sacramento kind of like a little test tube for creativity or something?
Yeah, I think it's always had a lot of talent. Sacramento hasn't really been like that small town that people say it is. It's really this huge city that's something like it's the 26th biggest city in America for radio audiences.
Yeah.
27th maybe. It's in the top 50 for population, and it's also a top 20 television market.
That's true.
So I mean, Sacramento is not this small town that a lot of people have heard about all their lives. People that move here from LA and San Francisco might think of it as a small town, but Sacramento actually has more area than San Francisco.
That's true. Well,
it doesn't have more people.
Yeah. I think Elk Grove has more area than San Francisco, really.
Yeah.
Was it 7 by 7, 49 square miles in San Francisco?
But Sacramento has always kind of had this slowly brewing indie scene that where you could always find good music. There's always been plenty of bands to say, like, create a playlist of local music, and I've done that a lot. I mean, I did a local show on Quad back in the early 90s. I started the local show there called Sound of Sacramento.
I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, and it was for all, it was all local bands, and then I was with Quad till 1996, and then I traveled the country a little bit, and then lived in the Bay Area for a while. I did start an internet station in Sacramento in 1999. It was called Sac Live, and that was 24 hours of local music, which was fun.
That kind of makes you a pioneer, because people back in those days were kind of scoffing at the idea of listening to radio on my computer. Why would I do that? I've got a radio.
Well, why would people do that, since it was so hard to listen to back then? The buffering and all that really hadn't been worked out. Broadband wasn't mainstream at that time. Most people were on dial-up connections.
I forget about those bad old days. That's true. Dial-up at your 28K, 56K modem.
14K. but you would, you'd get this, trying to dial up the ISP, and sometimes you'd get on.
It's classic, yeah.
But I mean, it was hard to listen to music back then. It was really, but we had a solution for streaming music. You just had to have a really good computer to hear it.
It's amazing. And now, for instance, if you're talking about 1999 or so, my smartphone in my pocket has more power and does more things
Exactly.
wirelessly than a computer from that era would do.
That's exactly true.
And you were saying to me before we got on that technology just keeps making things better for us.
Yeah, technology, it just improves. Every couple years we're in this new era,
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about how CDs have displaced vinyl. Vinyl was big, bulky, 12-inch discs, which a lot of us are still fond of, but then you have these nice little compact discs. I walked in here with a bag of maybe 50 or 60 discs, but now you can stick all that on your phone.
Even that might be out of date, because everyone's putting music on their iPods and, hard drives.
It's so amazingly true. Wow. So, Sacramento, are you from here originally, here all your life?
I was born in Sacramento and raised here, went to 2 high schools, John F. Kennedy and Rio Americano, then went to AR, then Sac State, and then got into radio and did that for like 20 years. Wow.
And I have other friends in radio, and the more I talk to people like you and other radio professionals, I realize it is not a good profession if you want to eat. That's a hard way to go these days, isn't it?
It's a tough it was a tough career no matter what era it was, because there were never enough jobs for the number of people who wanted them. So most people didn't last long that were trying out in the beginning, because it becomes really frustrating trying to move up the ladder when there's not a lot of movement.
Yeah, unbelievable. And
I was lucky though, because I started out in Sacramento and got to be on the air in Sacramento within 6 months of starting Quad. Most people don't get to be on the air that soon in a major market. Most of the time it takes moving around to small markets first, like the Marysville and really small markets, and then establishing a career and getting on in a big market.
Yeah, I'm amazed when somebody gets to be on the radio or TV in their hometown. That's got to be exceedingly rare these days, or any time.
Yeah, but it's even more. It's tougher now to get into radio. I mean, because of the changes in the industry over the past 15 years, there's less owners, and so less people to interview with.
Yeah.
So it's just a tough career now. And
you mentioned a year which just really rings true and stands out in my mind. You said you were with Quad till 1996.
Mm-hmm.
That's the year that I think the FCC deregulated radio, and
yeah.
To me that's the
Telecom Act of '96.
Yeah, and to me that's the year where just it all went south, because like you said, Clear Channel is a large company that bought about 1,600 stations, and you can't just have, or they don't have the rules anymore where it's just only a certain number of stations in any media market.
Right.
All that consolidation. But to me, radio started sounding bad right around then.
Yeah, 96 on was starting to be a little bit moving away from the local culture and moving more into nationalized corporate radio.
And somebody in corporate radio thought that loud rap metal, headbanging music is what everybody needed to hear, instead of melodic stuff.
They seem to guess wrong on that one. But, let's just back up a little before that. At its peak, alternative radio in 1995 was a mix of lots of styles, not just rock, but reggae, techno, folk, there was pop, there was even the early emo stuff. I mean, you had a wide variety of sounds, and it wasn't like a competition like it is now to sound a certain way. Back then, and it wasn't just the available music, it had to do with the people that were picking the music, which, I was one of them.
Yeah.
But there were other stations doing a great job with alternative at that time, like Live 105 in San Francisco, and K-Rock in LA, and 91X in San Diego. So really it was a West Coast phenomenon as far as who was kind of changing the rules of radio at that time. But it became more and more with the Telecom Act that you mentioned. It became more and more centralized from corporate headquarters, where you didn't have stations like Quad anymore that were independently owned. They bought them all out, and so from that point on, radio became very formatted.
Yeah, and as a fan of radio back in those days, and as a radio producer looking back on those days now, it just seems like alternative radio in those days, if you listen to the music, it just sounds like it's programmed by people with brains and hearts. And after about 96, 97, it sounded like it was programmed by people out to make a buck. It just, you could tell as a listener.
Yes, that's a very, very good summary of what happened. The way I would summarize it, kind of like the song by Smash Mouth called Walking on the Sun.
Yeah.
They kind of describe the whole era, how it fell apart and became really controlled. And at one point, it looked like the indies were winning. Back when Pearl Jam was fighting Ticketmaster,
yeah.
It looked like, even though they were on a major label, they were still a voice of the people, and a lot of us rallied behind that, and we thought that things were going to change around 94, 95 in our favor, a more independent direction.
Yeah.
We were wrong. It went the other way. It went more, corporate in terms of becoming more generic, less people deciding what got to be played on the radio, therefore less people deciding what gets to be popular. And ultimately, we lost a lot of that wide range of universal music that didn't have such rules attached to it. Now music kind of has rules. And I'm talking about commercial radio.
Yes,
I'm not really
yes.
talking about what we're doing right now, which is having fun on the radio. But
That's right.
commercial radio is very regulated and lots of rules, and you don't get the freedom you once had, and a lot of what is spoken on the air are just liner cards being read. And that's not how it used to be. It used to be kind of like how we're having a conversation right now. Just let the jock run the show.
I totally love this aspect of radio. Just live without a net. You heard me stumble a couple times before. Who cares? It
doesn't matter.
Fun.
No one's keeping track or keeping score. Whereas commercial radio, people are keeping score and keeping track, and it actually does come down to advertisers. And when the advertisers aren't there, or when there's issues about that affects programming. So
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm here with Alex Cosper, radio programmer extraordinaire. Why don't we take a quick break and listen to another example of a major artist who has gone indie. This one is Bill Mumy. He's actually known more for his acting, Danger, Will Robinson. He was in Barnes and Barnes when he did stuff like Fish Heads, but he self-produces. He's got a great studio set up at home in Los Angeles. He's on a great little indie label in Marin County, GRA Group, G-R-A Group, and in fact, this label specializes in artists just like him. They still have a lot left to say, but they're about as indie as can be, and we're going to hear Bill Mumy with a brand new song called I Owe a Little Money, here on The Voice. We're with Alex Cosper and talk about big bangs. We've got a little bit of a nerve-wracking situation right now. We're kind of following the San Francisco 49ers playoff game.
Yeah, it looks like the Saints are a little bit ahead with about 3 minutes left, but I don't know, anything could happen.
This is
I'm a Niner fan.
Yeah, it's a little more nervousness than we need on a Saturday, though. Come on.
Well, the Niners are good at pulling through, so we'll just keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, if we're going to archive this for history, hopefully there's a good result, good outcome. We like to see these guys go to the Super Bowl, and oh my gosh, this
Niners just made a big run, it looks like.
We're kind of watching this on NFL.com, and there's what appears to be a diagram, like a computer-generated diagram of the game. So there's these arrows and these red
you have to
decode
marks. It. You have to know a lot about how to take something on the screen that people can't see and describe it.
Isn't that what they used to do for baseball games? Didn't Ronald Reagan get started that way, calling baseball games off of paper tickers or something like that?
Yeah.
He was back in Iowa, and he was like a Cubs announcer, and he would just make up stuff, which I guess he's known for. But
I guess then anyone could be president.
And anybody could be in radio back in those days, Oh, we don't get too political here, but but yeah, so we're kind of doing the sports thing here, even this is more of a music show. We were talking about music. Who were some of the bands that you got to meet personally that you really, really liked back in the alternative era?
Well, not everyone I wanted to meet, but I did meet a lot of people. The most famous person I met was probably Alanis Morissette. I got to interview her in '96.
Was that a good interview?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I learned that she was not as angry as people thought she was.
Oh, thank goodness.
She's more of a soft-spoken person. I met Danny Elfman a few times.
Wow.
And he's always fun. This was toward the end of his band era and getting deeper into the soundtracks.
Yeah, he's a big movie score guy now.
Yeah, so I was always impressed with what he did. And I met Art Alexakis of Everclear, and he basically complimented Quad when we did a show at the Crest Theater back in, I guess, '96. He announced that Quad was one of the first stations in America to really start playing Everclear.
Nice. Now, are you known for that? I think I've read somewhere that you've kind of helped break some of these better-known bands. You and Quad did.
That's true. I mean, I didn't break everybody, but some names were cake.
Yeah, local.